What's up, everyone? Thralls of Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick, and I got an album review for you. Once again, we got another one from this Pacific Coast scene that is just blowing up in terms of old school death metal and death doom and such. And this was definitely one I was anticipating when I heard it was coming out. This is the debut full-length from Mortiferum with their album Disgorged from Psychotic Depths. This comes out Friday on Profound Lore Records. These guys are from Olympia, Washington. They formed in 2014. I have their original EP. I really dug it, so I was super excited to hear this new album. So it opens up with Archaic Visions of Despair. Already a great song title. This actually opens up with more of a funeral doom sort of pace. Like, it is very slow, and there's these layered synths in the background, and you don't even hear the guitars yet. You get a little bit of percussion, some chimes on a cymbal, and this massive bass tone. And to be honest, the bass really carries a lot of this album. It's actually brought up in the mix, which is kind of a rare thing you hear in death metal. Generally, it's pushed back in the mix in favor of the guitars. The guitars are not necessarily pushed back, but the bass is pushed forward, so every song has this additional heft to it due to this bass tone. Now, as soon as the guitars come in, you get a sense of Finnish death doom. At least that's what I got. Definitely reminded me of stuff like Hooded Menace and Ripikolu. This definitely labors really cool, creepy melodies across the album, too. These melodies start coming in and sort of crawl across the main riff of the song, and you get this foreboding, ominous feeling throughout this entire album due to these melodies. And I was actually really surprised at how melodic this album got. Now, this song is a really cool, slow builder. It starts off very funeral doom, death doom, and then moves into more death metal territory. You know, very old school, nasty, sludgy death metal. Instantly reminded me of Morbid Angel right away, especially on Blessed Are the Sick. And the song is well paced. It bounces back and forth between the death doom and more death metal moments, but each time it comes back to these moments, it sort of adds another layer, another dynamic on top of it. And I really dug the songwriting on here. That these songs are longer, and they kept me very interested throughout. Now, the song Inhuman Effigy opens up more straightforward death metal. Very old school death metal feel, a nice tremolo riff over a blast beat, and really had the feeling of an incantation song right away. And especially with the deep gurgled vocals, which are kind of close to John McEntie's, but that extra gurgle underneath kind of reminded me of an extra low Michael Ackerfeld back when he used to growl. Solid vocal performance. Gets up a little bit higher sparingly, but it really doesn't use that very much. It stays pretty much in that very low register growl. You know, this is a nice contrast from the first track since it's a little bit more upbeat. There are still some death doom moments on it, but it definitely favors more of the old school death metal side. And the first thing that I could think of that really reminded me of was the band Frenolith, which is a really cool underground Finnish death metal band that has a very similar sound to this. You know, very murky tone and just a very good driving rhythm to this one. Now, there are some cool death doom moments sprinkled in there just to remind you that they are very much still a death doom band, but I like the fact that this song favors the more up-tempo death metal side. Quite possibly my favorite track on here is Putrid Ascension. This song opens up in fiercely Morbid Angel territory. Very sludgy, angular riff, and then as this moment builds, boom, all of a sudden you go into this frantic blast beat with almost a Trey Asagoth sort of solo over it. Very squealy. This song is well constructed. It has so many cool dynamic moments in it that really stuck in my head. I love the use of melody in this. Again, I was very surprised at how melodic this album is, and this was one of the tracks that I thought the melodies really stood out on. And for a song over 8 minutes, it doesn't feel that long. Nothing seems like it's labored too long. They don't favor one moment too long or too short, too. Everything is pretty much well-paced, and each moment gives the other one time to breathe, too, so you really keep getting drawn into these songs as they keep moving along. I particularly loved how this song closed. It closes with a fiercely death doom part with these haunting, dissonant melodies, and then later some synths come in to sort of layer this moment, and it really just captures the overall feel of this album, which is a big thing. This album is really good about creating an atmosphere. It not only sounds heavy, it feels heavy. Funeral Hallucinations was another one I really got into on here. This one actually brought in a really clever breakdown that was just a good palm-muted, thrashy chug that kind of comes out of nowhere, and honestly isn't something that I really heard on the rest of the album. This was a really distinct moment, and it was catchy. Like, instantly, it really reminded me of Tomb Mold. Great hooks on this album, and of course it closes with a giant, monstrous doom metal riff. Now, I had to go back and compare this to their original EP, which I thought was really good. This was something they definitely expanded on. The sound is much bigger. It's, not only in the recording, it's, the original EP I thought was a little bit compressed. This has a massive sound across the board, and more attention to melody, songwriting, all that. This is an excellent album, flat out. So I love the overall sludgy feel of this too. It's like some beast lumbering through a swamp, and I would say there's even a little bit of a hint of sludge metal to it, like some moments that actually kind of reminded me of the more somber, downtrodden moments of Crowbar, which those are a lot, because Crowbar's pretty somber and downtrodden. But most of all, I like the balance they hark between both old school death metal and death doom. It's really not purely one or the other, it's really kind of a mix of the two, and it balances out very well. The attention to melody throughout is awesome. The songwriting is great. These songs really build. They have tons of dynamic moments. Not a lot of solos, but the solos they use in there are really good and distinctly different. Some of them favor more melody, others favor just going balls out and being shreddy as hell. So overall, I'm going to give it 4.5 stars. I really dig this one. I was really surprised at the use of melody throughout, and the songwriting and structure of these songs is really fantastic. This is on par with some of Hooded Menace's best stuff, I think. Really, really excellent album. I strongly recommend this for anyone that's a fan of old school death metal or death doom. It should appease either fan there. So, if you like the review, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do shit like this all the time. Catch you guys later.